You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Portal window is closed for LSU. Remember, every team, you have 5 days after your season ends to enter the transfer portal. And in all, LSU ended up with 19 players that hit the portal. Not an altogether surprising number. Roughly a quarter of all of college football players hit the portal. Think about that. About 25% of all college football players hit the portal this year. So it stands to reason on an 85-man roster, somewhere in that 20-ish number is about what you'd expect leaving your team each year. But then, of course, you're going to have guys who are out of eligibility and guys who go pro, and then you're bringing in a freshman signing class. You're bringing in the portal members. So LSU's had 19 go out and 14 so far come in, and I don't believe they're done. The last to exit was Jaylen Lee. Now, candidly, I had to do a double take whenever I saw this, because I thought Jaylen Lee was out of eligibility. And I know he wasn't a JUCO guy, so he's not taking advantage of the Diego Pavia rule. But when I dig a little deeper, I go back and I look at, okay, so he was a true freshman at Florida in 2020. So that was the COVID year, free season for everybody. So really, his 5 to play 4 started in 2021. Well, he plays in 8 games in 2021 for the Gators. So that's a year of eligibility that counts. In 2022, he played in a dozen games at Florida with 3 starts. So that's 2 years. So he comes to LSU in 2023 with 2 years of eligibility remaining. Well, in 2023, he plays in 7 games for the Tigers. So he's got 1 year left. Like Jaylen Lee coming into this year had 1 year of eligibility remaining. That was it. So when I saw him in the portal, I was like, how did that happen? Well, as it turns out, despite LSU in the offseason looking at defensive tackle as the unquestioned single biggest need and question mark position on LSU's roster at defensive tackle, Jaylen Lee redshirted this year. He only played 4 games. He played in the first 3 and then didn't play again until the Arkansas game. Of course, you beat Ole Miss, then you went to Arkansas and won impressively. And the Arkansas game was the last time we saw Jaylen Lee on the field. So he redshirted this season. He had not taken a redshirt. So he is eligible to play a 6th season somewhere else. So Jaylen Lee entered the transfer portal. And I look at Jaylen Lee entering the portal similarly to how I look at Kimo Makaneoli entering the portal, which he did late last week, and we talked about that if you missed it. And I actually look at this kind of as a good sign. Now, I'm going to tell you candidly, this is the spin zone here, okay? I'm spinning this because you never want to lose veteran depth. Of course, you would rather have Lee and JVR Suggs and Kimo and Demyron Johnson. So you had 4 defensive tackles enter the portal in the cycle. The freshman Demyron Johnson, JVR Suggs, who played 1 season here. He's going to Wisconsin now. Kimo, and then now Jaylen Lee. Of course, you'd rather have those guys than not have them. But follow me here. When you've got a guy like JVR Suggs, who in half of the season this year, in 6 games, played single-digit snaps. But the snaps he played were high-leverage downs. He was a specialized interior pass rusher. So he didn't have a lot of snaps, but he had 11 pressures in very limited snaps, 3 sacks. So he's very good at the thing he did. He just wasn't an every down tackle. So the fact that he left told you he wasn't going to be an every down tackle next year either. That's a pretty good sign. It means that you have guys that are better. And the same thing with Kimo and with Jaylen Lee, who are veteran guys who couldn't crack the rotation. So I actually look at it and say, that's probably a good sign for the guys that you have, that you're not counting on or betting on these guys to do something they've never done in their career because you feel like there's a higher upside with the guys that you do have. The other part of it, too, is LSU only went and added one defensive tackle, Sydir Mitchell from Texas. Now, he's a guy who looks differently than every other defensive tackle you got. He's 6'6", 350. That is a big old space-eating dude. Now, I don't think Sydir Mitchell's coming in and giving you 60 snaps a game and is going to be a 50-tackle guy on the interior of your defense. I think he's a big old body that's going to rotate in and stuff the run. Eat up blocks. Like, that's his role on this defense. Bo Davis recruited him to Texas. Now he's got him in Baton Rouge as the third-year player who's physically different than everybody else you got. But when I look at defensive tackle, I just think about how light years apart LSU is today from where they were a calendar year ago when they got Bo Davis, when Jordan Jefferson and Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo all went pro. You are light years away from where you were last spring when you were moving Kimo Makanayoli from offensive line to defensive tackle because you needed warm bodies to line up on the defensive line. When Brian Kelly was telling you, man, this is our most gigantic, glaring position of need. It is a must. We got to go get defensive tackles. And you couldn't land Dominic Williams, and in turn you end up, or Simeon Barrow, and you end up with JVR Suggs from Grand Valley. Like, it was your biggest need, and your only get was a kid from Division II Grand Valley. Like, you are in a different stratosphere from that. So as I look at it, yes, you're losing 4 defensive tackles, but look at what you have. It's almost like after signing day, you tend to focus on what you lost, but when you actually put in context of what you got, it's really good. So Jacobian Guillory's back for his 6th season. And going into last year, he was going to be your best guy. So adding Jacobian coming off of injury is almost like going out and adding an elite portal defensive tackle. It's a guy you didn't have this year, who you have next year. It's a huge advantage. You got Sean Washington coming back for another year. Another big dude on the interior who's a good rotational piece for you. Ahmad Bro and Dominic McKinley showed incredible progress throughout their freshman seasons. Dom battled that toe injury early, and by the second half of the season, he played really well for you. And he played over 60 snaps in the bowl game. Was by far the most snaps he'd played in a game. So you can see with those 4 right there, and then you add Sydir Mitchell, that's a 5-man rotation at tackle that feels like every one of those dudes is better than the guy you had this year. I mean, with tremendous respect to what Paris Shand did. That was a 270-pound end kicking in and playing tackle out of necessity. And you had Ahmad Bro and Dominic McKinley as true freshmen playing. It stands to reason both of those guys as second-year players will be better than they were as first-year players. Getting Jacobian Guillory back, Sean Washington a year older, and then you add Sydir Mitchell. You are undeniably better. Your 5 there are better than whatever 5 you ran this year. And oh, by the way, you got 4 freshmen coming in that Bo Davis recruited. That's 9 defensive tackles. Last spring, you needed warm bodies. Now, you got numbers and experience and talent and upside. Like, Bo Davis has done an absolutely remarkable job making over that room. I'm not telling you they've got Chad Lavallee or Kyle Williams or Claude Roten or Drake Nevis or Benny Logan or Michael Brockers. I'm not telling you they got All-Americans or first-round draft picks. I'm also not telling you they don't. Could Dom McKinley be that? Could Ahmad Bro be that? Maybe. Could Jacobian Guillory come back for a 6-year and go bonkers? Maybe. I mean, Chad Lavallee was working at a prison. Dude came up and was unblockable in 2003. So maybe you got that. But what is not even debatable is that with a bare bone rotation at defensive tackle last year, Bo Davis turned what was your worst position group into a serviceable group. That was far from a liability. Now, they weren't dominant, but they weren't a liability like we thought they could be. I think in 2025, with what I just laid out for you, they're a strength. And when you look at the rest of this portal class that's leaving LSU, always look at who are the impact guys that are leaving. Like, who are the guys that you feel like, man, it's going to be tough to replace him? Chemo, AJ Swan, I think you're better with Michael Van Buren. Sage Ryan was a starter for you, but I still believe they're going to get a starter in the safety at safety before this is over. Suggs was a rotational guy. Pimpton didn't play. J.K. Johnson was hurt. Nathan Dybert didn't play. Jordan Allen, Xavier Atkins, Bernard Causey, Jair Brown, Demyron Johnson, Kylan Jackson. These are all backups. Shelton Sampson, C.J. Daniels, Deshaun Womack. Then Landon Ibieta and Ricky Collins. There's 2 guys. 2. Of the 19 that hit the portal, there are 2 that were impact guys for you. Or let me not even say impact guys. That were, and I'll throw Sage Ryan because he started. 3 guys that were contributors for you. As solid as C.J. Daniels was, you're better at receiver this year. That's not even debatable with what you've added in the portal. Jury's out at safety because you have got to go add another player. Like, I'm going to be steadfast. You cannot kick off the ball against Clemson August the 30th without adding another starting safety. Cannot. So jury's out, but I think you're going to be better than you would have with Sage. And then Deshaun Womack was a 5-star, but he's also a one-trick pony. He's an edge rusher. He's not a 3-down end because he can't play against the run. He's a very good edge rusher, but he's not a 3-down guy. Well, you went and added Jack Pyburn and Jamari Butler and Patrick Payton. You went and added 3 dudes that are all better than the guy you lost. It's hard not to say they're better across the board than they were. Portal is closed. Obviously, there will be a spring portal window, so we'll reassess this then. But, man, I don't know how you look at LSU's roster any other way but being better at every single spot in 25 than they were in 24. Tell me a spot where they're not as good. Tell me a spot in 2025 where they're not as good as they were in 2024. I could hear an argument for tight end because Mason Taylor was literally the best you ever had.
Mason Taylor!
But can the combination of Bauer Sharp and Trey'Dez Green match or exceed that? Maybe. Like, as a room? Like, the whole, like, the sum of the parts may be greater than the whole in that respect? We'll see. That feels like that's about it. Incredible job, man. Hat tip Austin Thomas, Brian Kelly, Frank Wilson for the job they've done with this portal class. Pretty incredible work over the last month. I'll remind you, it was a month ago when I sat in this chair on National Signing Day. And I told you plainly, I said, talk to me in a month. While there were a lot of people melting over Bryce Underwood and Cade Phillips and Jakeem Stewart, I sat here that day and I said, talk to me in a month. They showed fiscal responsibility by not overspending on some of those players and instead committed that money to the portal class. And they have gone gangbusters in the portal class. And you got Nussmeier back. And you signed a top 10 recruiting class. And you're not done. I said, talk to me in a month. It's been a month. How do you feel? Should feel pretty good. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.